what makes an episode of Star Trek underrated? There are some absolute winners that just don't get the attention they deserve, like Enterprise's Observer Effect, Voyager's wonderfully surreal The Thaw, or Discovery's incredible Season 1 time loop show with Harry Mudd. But I think to be the most underrated means having the biggest difference between the reputation of an episode and the actual quality. When it comes to Star Trek, there are a number of pretty good episodes that I think are unfairly considered terrible. Like, for instance, Voyager's Threshold.
What?
Yeah, you heard me. The one where Tom Paris goes warp 10 and evolves into a salamander. It's not what I'd call an all-time great episode of Voyager, but it's a pretty good character piece for Tom Paris and a fun body horror monster movie. Robert Duncan McNeill turns in what I think is one of his best performances in the series as he faces death and turns into a monster. It's some well-made sci-fi right up to the bizarre ending, when monster Tom Paris kidnaps Janeway and they have salamander babies.
Pizza! Pizza!
Look, the last 5 minutes is all anybody ever talks about when they claim it's a bad episode, but honestly, I kinda love the ending too. It's so bold and out there, I have to respect it. I don't know, it seems like a cool, memorable episode, and I think nowhere near the worst episode of Voyager, as many claim. Telltale sign of a bad Star Trek episode, is it boring? Threshold, definitely not boring. I should clarify something. The name of the channel is All Trek is Good Trek, but my claim has never been that there are no bad episodes. I strongly believe every series averages out to be extremely good, but there are over 900 episodes. They're not all going to be winners. Bad episodes do exist. I just genuinely believe that Threshold isn't one of them. The execution isn't perfect, but it has a neat premise, it holds my attention, and it has one of the best jokes in the entire series.
Can you wake him?
I don't see why not. Wake up, Lieutenant!
You guys, the Doctor is coming back in the new show. I'm so excited. But is Threshold the most underrated Star Trek episode? No. Of all the Trek episodes considered the worst, there is one that, in my view, is one of the all-time best in the whole franchise. And it's the Enterprise episode, A Night in Sickbay. In my opinion, this is easily the biggest gulf between reputation and actual quality in Star Trek history. To me, this episode is one of the greatest demonstrations of what made Enterprise such a breath of fresh air for the franchise in the early 2000s. By turning the clock back a couple hundred years, Enterprise was able to give us a version of Star Trek with humans that weren't quite so unfailingly noble. This crew didn't go through Starfleet Academy. They're astronauts, not diplomats.
Well, you're a trained diplomat.
Okay, maybe forget that part. A Night in Sickbay isn't afraid to show us Captain Archer on his worst day and reacting to it in a way that is almost shockingly relatable. This episode follows Archer as he navigates low-stakes diplomacy with the Cretaceans, the same people they offended a year earlier by eating in front of them.
You put food in your mouths.
These guys are really good at making plasma injectors, and Enterprise needs one. But after a trip to the surface of their planet, Best Boy Porthos gets a pathogen from their atmosphere that compromises his immune system. For the rest of the episode, we see Captain Archer go through a very accurate depiction of what it's like when your dog is sick. For reference, it's like when your child is sick, but you're surrounded by people telling you it's not that big a deal because it's just a dog. So, absolutely the worst feeling in the entire world. The dog ends up being fine at the end. It's okay. I'm not going to expose you to that kind of gut-wrenching dramatic tension, even for the duration of this episode summary. So the Cretaceans are partially responsible for all this, since Enterprise sent detailed genetic information about Porthos before they came down to the planet, and they clearly didn't bother looking at it. But the reason Archer didn't get his plasma injector when he was on the surface was because Porthos peed on one of their sacred trees. So during this awful situation, the people who bear some responsibility for Porthos being sick are demanding an apology themselves. The civilized Jean-Luc Picard Star Trek approach to this situation would be to put diplomacy above all else and apologize with no hesitation. But that's sure as hell not what I would do. Archer reacts like a real modern-day person, by getting pissed off and desperately trying to justify not going through an elaborate ritual apology. Is it a headstrong reaction? Sure. Is it exactly what I would do in the same position? Unquestionably yes. Especially while Porthos' fate is still up in the air. He does eventually go through the ritual and smooth things over with the Cretassins, but the episode really tracks his journey to reach that point. In this case, the story takes place over a single night and almost entirely in Sickbay, which is why the title of the episode. And it exclusively follows one character, Captain Archer. Outside of a brief moment with Hoshi on the bridge, Archer appears in every scene. When he's so preoccupied with Porthos that he sleeps in sickbay, we follow the captain in another profoundly relatable experience, sleeping at somebody else's place. There's something very real about spending the night somewhere unfamiliar and waking up over and over to the weirdness and unfamiliarity of another person's home. Structuring an episode of television around that is kind of genius, and framing that around the unending weirdness of Dr. Phlox is even better. Even though the main story of the episode is about saving Porthos, we don't really know much about the science going into it. Remember, we're getting everything from Archer's perspective, and he's mostly in the dark about what Dr. Phlox is doing. And most of the process is waiting to see if treatments work, which is another jarring dose of reality that really makes this episode shine. A Night in Sickbay is really about a Starfleet captain just being a guy having a bad day, which is just wildly unexpected in Berman-era Star Trek, and I absolutely love it. And it's about John Billingsley's magnificent performance as Dr. Phlox.
I know I got the silhouette right. I mastered the call years ago.
He's the best, and we all know it. So why would anybody not like this episode? I don't know. And I don't really care. I'm not here to defend it, just to tell you why I love it. Though I have seen one criticism that I do take issue with. The argument is that Captain Archer was really stupid for taking the dog to the planet of those people who are always offended. And I think this is an unfair criticism. I'm defending Archer on this one. First, the Cretassins weren't yet the people who were always offended. They were offended once due to a significant cultural difference. We think of them as the offended aliens because we join the story after things have already gone wrong. Second, Archer made a point of telling the Cretassins that they were bringing Porthos beforehand. He sent information on the dog, and they didn't look at it. That's not Archer's fault. These are all just my opinions, of course. If these episodes aren't your cup of tea, that's totally fine. But I want to know, what episodes do you think are underrated? Either underappreciated episodes or ones you think get too much hate. There are over 900 episodes in this franchise, and I would love to watch some hidden gems. Drop a comment, let me know. This is another dog named Porthos. He's the oldest pug in the whole world and history's best boy. Porthos! Porthos, come here! He can't hear me.